Hi, it's the last Friday of July. Just want to say a little bit, wrap up the plum season a little bit. That's the last, or nearly the last, of the opal plums. There's often a few left over. We've picked these plums over successionally and we've been selling them and giving a lot away to our friends as well over the last 2 to 3 weeks. So we've been through the opal. Yeah, regrettably we've had some branches break, including a big one. Next to the opals are the Victorias. There's a row of opals and a row of Victorias, and these are the Victorias. The heavy thinning has paid off. We've got some broken branches still, I'm afraid. Thinning gives you a good big average size. So what I'm going to do this year, I'm actually going to get the ruler out and I'm going to measure, not estimate, but measure how far apart the plums are when they're going in an optimum sort of size. These are just ripening up. They're not quite ready to take the market yet. Hey, look at that, that's a beauty. That's what you want. That's the sort of plum that you want. Here's, yeah, if those two have been taken out, that one will be bigger. We've got 1 or 2 other varieties as well. We've just picked over this tree which is called blue tit, and I think this is the first year we've actually had a crop off of this.
I've never seen this fruit before, I didn't know what it would be like.
We bought some plums from the trees. We've got the trees from Blackmore Nurseries. I strongly recommend Blackmore Nurseries. If you're not in the UK, then you can still have a look at their website and learn a lot from it. So we picked these 2 boxes of plums have come from this one tree, and it seems, as Julia was remarking, it seems a very healthy tree. The habit of growth seems very good. It doesn't carry the sort of massive branch breaking crops that the others have had. It seems very healthy, and when you're trying to decide what varieties to grow, flavour is an important thing, but regular cropping and tree health are very important things. So what do you think of this blue tit anyway? And Julia, and how much weight do you think there is in here? These are
interested in this tree.
Yeah.
Now we've probably got about 20 kilos in each box there. So about
20 kilos in each box?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah, because I've been weighing them out for other customers, so that's pretty well
that's
what
heavy.
I would think. They're very dense.
I think they are, aren't they? You think this through, if I divide that into fifths.
It's not a big plum. It set a lot of fruit and it didn't need much thinning, and it hasn't broken its branches.
There's probably at least 12 kilos in each box, so at least 25 kilos, 50 pounds. 50 pounds of plums, minimum. We haven't weighed them, maybe we'll weigh them. So what do you do with these plums anyway? Just so for, obviously we're taking these to market and we'll sell these probably all at Winchester on Saturday, which happens to be our wedding anniversary on 31st of July. But so we'll sell these. So what do people do with plums?
Well, you can make plum pie or plum crumble or plum jam or plum wine. Or you can let them get ripe to their sweet and just eat them as plums.
And we're not going to give you recipes for those because you can find recipes all over YouTube and the rest of the web.
These are the plums I just like to eat fresh, they're lovely. I mean, some of them look a bit green, they'll ripen up in the fruit bowl. This
is important, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because generally with plums we pick them a little bit before they're ripe.
If you want that colour to be eaten, they're nice and sweet.
If you wait until they are perfectly ripe before you pick them, then they'll probably go a bit squashy in store. This one feels quite soft. Yeah. Perfectly ripe to eat. Beautiful. So we're picking these. Timing is quite an issue. Regrettably, I see there's a big branch broken off the Marjorie's seedling. How did we let that happen?
Well, I think a number of reasons. One, it was a very tall trunk.
Yeah.
You can see how high it was. What, about 12 feet off the ground? And I didn't
more like 8.
I didn't think there was much fruit on there because I couldn't see it, and it's right near the beehive, and I didn't want to be dangling around on a ladder. Yeah, I had to chase when they chased me, didn't I? Yeah. So unfortunately, it didn't get thinned for those reasons, and it's collapsed. Whereas this one, it's just this one here, which is also nice. Look at this, what a shit! Oh dear. This one hasn't got the same. Half the tree's broken down. Yeah. This is rubbish. Here we are telling everybody in the world how to manage plums and failing ourselves. But as you say, that I've got a daytime job. But I don't get it as often as I love. You can just see, the weight of that. What I'm going to do next winter is cut a lot of hazel sticks to support these.
Anyway, let's go and have a look. Let's just go and have a look at the, just as we did a quick video about plums. Have a look.
Victoria's will be the next one.
It's a massive crop this year.
And the trees are about to dismantle themselves, even though we've thinned these trees. I've personally thinned these trees twice, and I think you've done them twice. And it just hasn't been enough.
Well, next time let's do it enough and get it right, okay?
You see, what we shouldn't have clumps of fruit, we should have individual ones.
But we were hours doing this, and we just didn't have any more time.
And at the time, it looked right, and now I'm looking at it, I'm thinking these don't look as though they've been thinned at all.
Well, this year we're going to do two things.
I mean, this branch,
yeah.
I'll take off the M1.
There's two things we're going to do different this year, over the next season. One, I'm going to get a ruler out and measure how many there are per foot, and then we're going to do that not by how we feel, but by a formula. We're going to reduce this to a formula.
More like what it should.
And the other thing we're going to do is cut a load of hazel sticks with forks in them and use them to support. Let's just walk past the damsons and walk to the place where I've actually done that to some extent. So when you've got a really heavy crop, you do need perhaps to support it in some way. Here's one way of supporting a heavy crop, maypoling. Okay, pears obviously, but yeah, these are the damsons. Tell us about damsons, Julia.
Damsons are a different sort of plum. They have more tannins. They've got a slightly bitter taste, which is very astringent and pleasant. They're very sharp at the moment. We're picking some to take to market, and people will use them for making jam or pies. But then you can ripen these. We'll ripen them on the tree for another couple of weeks. You can ripen them further in the fruit bowl. When they're really ripe, they do become sweet. And the balance of the tannins and the acid and sugar is very pleasing, and it has a much richer flavour.
Damson jam, I remember from my childhood.
Yeah, it's
lovely stuff.
And aromatic, isn't it?
It's a balance of acid, like a good wine, balance of acid, tannin and flavour compounds.
It's a cultivated damson, it's not the wild one. The wild
this is the Merriweather damson, isn't it? And we've been picking these over selectively. Yep. These are obviously quite green. We've been going over and selectively picking out the best and the ripest ones here. And we've got a few big sacks of these. We're just sending up a lot of suckers from the root. By the way, would-be grafters, and these are suckers coming up. So these are the rootstock that these plums are growing. If you want to dig these up, I would do it in the winter. If you want to dig these up with plenty of root, plant them out, you'll have rootstocks you can graft onto. I've dealt with that issue in other videos. So we've been picking these over. We've got quite a few damsons.
Yeah, I think we've got four boxes now. These are trees we've picked over. So
where are they? Oh, they're over here, aren't they? Yeah. Well, let's just wander past the damsons, and yeah, some of what we picked for the farmers market on Sunday. First of the apples, James Grieve. These are a dual purpose apple. If they're ripened on the tree until maybe second week of September perhaps, in a normal year they'll be good eaters, but these are good cookers now, usually August. Those are damsons, there's some of the damsons we picked, huge number of them. That's one of the noisy 3-engine 12-seater planes that fly to the Channel Islands. Non-pressurised, noisy as anything.
Cherry plums, Steve. Look how pretty they are.
Now, these were a little accident, weren't they?
Yeah.
Because when we founded the orchard,
planted sloes in the hedge.
Yeah.
And some of them were actually these cherry plums. It's the wild native, or the wild plum.
Me and my mate Duncan Haig planted this hedge one morning before breakfast. We walked around. One of us carried a big bag, and the other one carried a hoe. And we were planting little rooted cuttings.
Now these are quite sweet.
About the size of what I've got in my hand. About 300 in the morning.
The texture is more like an apricot than a plum.
Yeah.
They've got a drier, denser.
And we suspect that these were raised from stones, and that this was either a sport, in which case it may even be the only one of its kind in the world. Very unlikely,
no,
really.
I don't think so. No,
or else it was just something that is a known cultivated variety, but which just got in with the sloes by accident. We certainly didn't order it.
I think these are wild cherry plums, and they're quite variable. If you come round here, Steve, you've got another one which becomes red.
Well, these appeared by accident.
These are not ready so early. That's the earliest one. This one, can you see they're changing? They'll become dark red, almost the colour of those damsons.
Cherry plums, you see. These actually look a bit like cherries, aren't they? Curious. Anyway, just finally wanted to...
And actually, it's also called the myrobalan, and that was widely used as a rootstock for plums.
Yeah.
So you could grow your own rootstock from these pips, but the drawback is that the myrobalan rootstock gives a very big plum tree.
This is a big problem.
Our plum trees on the St Julian rootstock, which is supposed to dwarf them, but I mean, look at the size of them.
They get very big, and these are the green gauges, aren't they? And you've picked over these and picked out the biggest ones, and we've got 4 boxes of these.
I picked over the ones that were hanging low because I didn't want the fox to eat them, but I haven't picked this tree, and there's some really ripe ones here.
That's what you saw a fox had, didn't you, eating them the other day?
Now these are a different type of plum again, and they're sweet and honey. They haven't got the acidity of the other plums. Juicy.
These are unbelievably,
really sweet like honey.
Unbelievably sweet. It's quite possible to start eating these and, you know, eat a whole bag of them. But anyway,
they're really difficult to grow because you just don't get many on the tree, do you? You have
some years we have hardly any.
Well, some years you have none, and then other years you might have a
I mean, they never carry.
This is a good crop for them, isn't it?
Yeah, they never have a crop anything like what we get on a lot of the mainstream plums. It's worth growing a few if you can, or worth growing one, because of the supreme quality of it. But I just want to show you one final thing about the plums. I've been propping up a few branches. See, really heavy crop of thinness again. You know, loads more on the ground. I've cut off it before many more branches broke. Just a forked hazel stick, just holding that up, and there's another one here. This is what I should have done at an earlier stage. Again, it's a thick hazel, bit of hazel that I cut from our hedgerow. The bottom of it has been sharpened with a bill hook, and that's just driven into the soil a little bit, so it's got a reasonable degree of stability, and that's just holding this up. And there's another one over here which didn't have a hook in it, didn't have a natural crook, but I split that with a knife. Just split that, and that's you see that's just holding that up and stopping that breaking off. So we hope we won't have too many more broken branches, but it's amazing. Much harder as we've thinned these this year, we've still had a lot of broken branches. It's been fantastic year for plums, and everything's up 2 to 3 weeks early. So we're going to be able to take, how many varieties of plums are we going to take to Winchester this?
Damsons, green gauges, last of the opal, the blue tit, and cherry plums, so 5.
Right. Good, that's pretty good.
Plus the first of the apples, we'll be eating apples.
Right, and the first Victoria will be ready in about 2 or 3 weeks.
No, sooner than that. I've just eaten one now, and it was just edible. They'll be ready for next week. Well,
all right. So how long will our plum harvest have spread then? About a month, about 4 weeks, all told?
No, more than that, because the yellow plums are even later. We've been picking opals for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
These aren't nearly ready yet, so probably another 3 weeks.
So obviously our main thing is the apples, and secondary to that pears and plums. The great thing about plums is they get you into the market a little bit earlier, which is really nice. If you were advising, someone's going to ask us, a backyard orchard, if somebody wants to have a small group of trees in their back garden, and they wanted to grow one plum tree, obviously we have different varieties to the United States where a lot of the subscribers are, but what advice would you give?
Well, based on what we've seen today, and all the other experience we've had with plums, I would grow blue tit, because it just seems to be the most disease resistant and the most trouble free, but it's a dessert plum. It's as vigorous as the wild cherry plum, but with a nice dessert fruit. I don't know if it's self-fertile, you'd have to look into that.
We'd have to do some research on that.
But the Victoria, the green gauges, the yellow plum, and the damsons even that we grow are all very susceptible to this bacterial canker, which is destroying
We've
the
been
trees.
very unlucky with bacterial canker, haven't we?
But the cherry plums don't seem to get it. And the rootstocks that we grow these plums on don't suffer from it, because after the plum tree has died, the rootstocks still throw up suckers.
Yeah.
So there are some resistant varieties, and the blue tit does seem to be resistant.
The final thing about plums, you can't eat, if you get a good crop, an average crop of plums off of a tree, it's more than you can eat, it's more than your family can eat. So eat some fresh and preserve them in various ways. And Andrew Norris has, on his excellent YouTube channel from former Yugoslavia, I think it's Croatia, I can't remember for certain, demonstrates where plums are fermented and distilled to make eau de vie, which is, if it's legal to do that, a very, very good use for the massive surplus of sugar and fruit which a plum tree will give you. But there are lots of ways to preserve plums. You can make, you know, I do a preserve using some cider vinegar, plums, ginger and Szechuan pepper, a sort of Chinese style
chutney, isn't it?
sauce, plum sauce.
These are beautiful bottled. If you make a thick syrup, thick sugar syrup, and the dark plums, the red ones, or even the damsons, are beautiful bottled in brandy. But these delicate green gages are lovely if you bottle them with a bit of vodka, because it doesn't detract from the flavour.
That reminds me, we've got one jar of that left.
Still got a jar of this. I wouldn't normally bottle these because we don't normally have too many, but sometimes you get a little glut and they go over so quickly, and I just thought that's a really nice way to preserve them. You get that lovely green gage flavour because you've got the alcohol there, but it doesn't have any other flavours that detract from it.
And you can just stone them and freeze them, can't you? Would you blanch them first, or you stew them down before freezing them in bags for winter desserts? I do
quite a lot of these stone fruits because it takes less room in the freezer, but you can freeze them whole, or you can half them and stone them and freeze them as halves. Obviously
that would be for cooking, wouldn't it?
Yes, because when they come out of the freezer,
yeah.
they've gone a bit mushy, so they're fine then for making pies or crumbles.
Yeah, it's the thing about plums, isn't it? And that's one of the reasons why they're not grown so much, is because they're very dependent on the weather. In spring, if you get a nice, dry, sunny, warm spell on the plum blossom, you will get a massive crop, and that's what happened this year. And you will get a massive crop, so will everybody else who's growing plums. They don't store, they don't travel, but they do preserve, and they are lovely to enjoy in their season.